This relatively short tutorial is going to go over graphing polar curves on Desmos, a very useful resource to graph polar curves, not just polar curves, even parametric curves. And so essentially, we basically go to desmos.com and we start with typing in r equals to, and then you type out what you want to type out. I'm just going to type 1 plus cosine. Now, this is the part that you need to make sure that you understand. Instead of typing out just x, if you end up doing this, you're going to get a cosine curve that's shifted up 1 unit. So that's what we get here. If we remove the 1, or we just subtracted 1, we would get our cosine curve again. So that's not what we want to do. That would just graph it out like it's a regular curve, but we want a polar curve. And so what we're going to do is we're going to delete this x and we're going to type out the word theta, Theta. What this does is it recognizes the fact that you are graphing a polar curve, and it graphs out a polar curve for you. This is a famous polar curve. If you don't know what this is, you should look it up. This is a cardioid and looks kind of like a heart. So if you wanted to, now the next thing I wanted to cover was if you wanted to graph only a certain portion of this curve, you could bound it. So if I wanted to go from 0 to, instead of 2 pi, I want to just go to pi, that's exactly half of the curve, you could do that. How is this useful? Well, of course it's useful in determining the shape of the curve. In addition to that, it's more user-friendly than some of the other graphs, like for example, or graphing calculators, for example, using your TI-84 or your TI calculator. And in addition to that, if you wanted to solve, for example, an arc length problem, or rather than that, more harder problems like area problems, and you wanted to find exactly your bounds of integration, you could do that by testing, by experimenting, which is obviously not the best way to do the problem. You can set your r values to different values and then find the theta values accordingly. But if you wanted to, you can also graph it out on Desmos if you have access to it, and you can test out the bounds, something that is very useful. So that's essentially graphing polar curves on Desmos.